March 23rd, 1945. 06:17 hours. Schwanheim, Germany. Rhine River Valley. The paint is still wet. Captain Doug Faulkner can smell it. Chemical sweetness mixing with diesel fumes and the damp rot of morning fog so thick you could drown in it. His Sherman M4A3E8, Easy 8, is the color of a flamingo, of a sunrise, of something that should not exist on a battlefield. What he doesn't know, what he can't know, is that in 11 minutes, German tank commanders will radio back to their command post reporting ghost tanks and hallucinations, and one will simply say impossible before his transmission cuts to static. But first, they have to see it. Or rather, they have to not see it. The fog is everything. It's not the grey mist of early morning that burns off clean. This is industrial fog, valley fog. The kind that forms when cold air settles over the Rhine and mixes with smoke from 1,000 fires, burning towns, destroyed vehicles, the cremated dreams of the Third Reich. Visibility is 15 yards, maybe 12. The world ends at the hood of the tank. Faulkner's hand rests on the turret hatch. Behind him, his crew is silent. They've been silent since he ordered the paint job 6 hours ago. They think he's cracked. Maybe he has. The regiment's other Shermans are standard olive drab Vert 319, the colour that's kept them alive through France and Belgium and now deep into Germany. Faulkner's is salmon pink Leopard 212, requisitioned from a bombed-out paint factory in Mainz. His gunner, Sergeant Ray Morrison, had asked the only question that mattered. "Sir, are you trying to get us killed?" Faulkner's answer, "Only if I'm wrong about the fog. The fog that's now so thick he can taste it, metallic and cold. The fog that German Panzers are about to drive through, hunting for American armour, they expect to see against the landscape. Olive drab against brown earth, standard camouflage, predictable." Through his headset, the radio crackles. "Easy 6, this is Baker 3. Multiple contacts, you're 2 o'clock, range unknown. Engine sounds, heavy. Panzers, plural." Faulkner keys the mic. "Baker 3, Easy 6, acknowledged. Hold position. Do not engage." "Easy 6, we can't see them. This fog, I know. Wait. Because in this fog, in this impossible grey-white soup, olive drab looks exactly like a tank. It has edges, contrast, shadow, but pink. Pink is a wound. Pink is flesh. Pink is the colour of dawn that your brain dismisses as atmospheric, as not threat, as nothing." The engine sounds are close now. Multiple Maybach HL-230s, the deep rumble that means Panthers or Tigers or both. Faulkner can feel them through the hull, through his bones. His loader, Private Eddie Chen, whispers into the intercom, "Jesus, sir, they're right on top of us." They are. 30 yards, maybe 25. The fog is too thick to see muzzles, too thick to see silhouettes. But Faulkner can see them. 3 shapes, 4. Moving in column, slow, feeling their way through the fog like blind men in a minefield. They're hunting. They know American armour is here. They're doing it by sound, by instinct. One passes within 15 yards of Faulkner's pink Sherman. The German commander is visible in his cupola, head out, scanning. His eyes sweep right over Faulkner's position. No recognition, no alarm. His brain sees pink in grey-white fog and deletes it. Atmospheric anomaly. Dawn light reflecting off mist. Not a threat. He keeps moving. Morrison's voice is so quiet, it's almost subsonic. "Sir, he's not seeing us." "No," Faulkner says. "He's not." 7 German tanks pass within 20 yards. Not one sees the pink Sherman sitting in the open, gun already traversed, round already loaded. The question isn't whether Faulkner's gamble worked. The question is what happens when he fires, and they realise the ghost in the fog has teeth. Before Germany, before the Rhine, before any of this, Douglas James Faulkner was an art conservator from Portland, Maine, population 70,810. He'd spent 5 years at the Portland Museum of Art, restoring paintings damaged by age and incompetent handling, learning that colour is context, that the same pigment looks different depending on what surrounds it. That human vision is less about what's there and more about what the brain expects to see. His specialty was camouflage, biological camouflage. His master's thesis at Cornell had been on countershading in military applications, studying how animals use color gradients to break up their silhouettes. He'd spent a summer in the Adirondacks photographing deer in fog, documenting how their coloring made them vanish not through blending in, but through breaking the pattern the eye searches for. His colleagues thought he was eccentric. His fiancée, Sarah, called him obsessive. His father, a Navy man who'd served in the Great War, called it Doug's art project. But there was one moment that defined him. Summer of 1939, camping in Maine woods, dawn patrol hunting with his father. They'd spotted a deer in thick morning fog, except his father hadn't seen it. It was standing broadside, maybe 40 yards out, perfectly visible to Doug. His father was looking right at it and seeing nothing. Doug finally pointed directly at it, and his father's brain suddenly allowed him to see it, like a magic eye puzzle clicking into focus. "How the hell did you spot that?" his father had asked. "It's the wrong color for fog," Doug had said. "Reddish-brown stands out. But if it had been grey or pink or white, you'd lose it completely." "No, your brain would lose it. Big difference." The Army looked at his file. Cornell graduate, visual arts background, high spatial reasoning, and made him an infantry officer. By March 45, he was commanding a Sherman platoon in the 14th Armored Division, attached to Patton's Third Army. His crew respected his eye for terrain. In the Saar, he'd positioned his tanks in a tree line that looked wrong, too sparse, too obvious. But the Germans had shelled a different tree line 400 yards north, because their expectations told them that's where American armor should be. But none of that matters if you can't see the enemy before they see you. And in Rhine Valley fog, nobody sees anything. That's why Faulkner spent March 22, 1945, searching for paint. The Rhine crossing was supposed to be the beginning of the end. March 1945, Allies pouring across the river, Patton racing Eisenhower to be first into Germany proper. The 14th Armored Division secured a bridgehead at Oppenheim, then pushed east into the Rhine Valley, flat, agricultural, perfect tank country. Perfect except for the fog. The Rhine Valley creates its own weather system. Cold air from the river meets warm air from the industrial Ruhr, creating persistent fog from March through April. Not occasional morning mist. Persistent fog that could last for days. Visibility would drop to 0 at dawn and stay there until noon. Sometimes longer. The tactical problem was sensory deprivation written in moisture. Sherman tanks relied on visual acquisition, spotting enemy armor before it spotted you, using the 76mm gun's superior range and optics. In dense fog, that advantage vanished. Every engagement became point blank. The Sherman's armor, 64mm glacis, 38mm sides, was inadequate against German guns even at range. At close range, it was a death sentence. Standard doctrine was clear. In low visibility conditions, armor formations halt and wait for clearing. Do not advance into fog where enemy positions are unknown. The rule existed because in January 45, an entire American tank company had driven into fog near Bastogne and been ambushed at knife fighting range by dug-in Panthers. 17 Shermans lost. 4 German tanks destroyed. Unacceptable loss ratio. But this wasn't January. This was March, and Patton's Third Army was racing. Every hour of delay let German forces reposition, fortify, mine roads. The operational tempo demanded aggression, but the fog demanded caution. The 14th Armored Division's commander, Major General Albert C. Smith, issued explicit guidance. Armor will advance through fog only with infantry support and at reduced speed. No independent tank actions in limited visibility. Faulkner's company commander, Captain Jim Bracken, was more direct. "Doug, I don't care how good your eyes are. You take your platoon into that soup without knowing what's out there. You're coming back in body bags. We wait for clearing." March 22nd, 0800 hours. Intelligence reported German armor, Panzer Brigade 106, withdrawing east toward Frankfurt. They were using the fog as cover, moving during 0 visibility hours, stopping during clearing. It was working. American fighter bombers couldn't see them. American artillery couldn't target them. They were slipping away. By 1400 hours, the fog still hadn't lifted. By 1800 hours, scout reports indicated the German armor would be gone by morning, either east of Frankfurt or dug in at prepared positions. Faulkner was studying the fog from his position when his gunner, Morrison, a former hunter from Wisconsin, said, "Sir, this reminds me of duck hunting. Geese won't see decoys if the decoys stand out, but if they blend too much, geese get suspicious. The sweet spot is, looks right but not interesting." Faulkner stared at the fog. Grey-white, industrial, thick as cotton. "Morrison," he said slowly, "what colour would make us look like nothing?" "Olive drab looks like a tank, sir." "That's the problem. What if we didn't look like a tank?" Morrison followed his logic. "You'd want... Jesus, sir. You'd want to match the fog itself. Not match, disappear into." That's when Faulkner went looking for paint. The bombed-out paint factory in Mainz had been hit 3 days prior. Most of the inventory was destroyed, but the warehouse still stood. Faulkner and his crew spent 2 hours sorting through salvageable cans. They found white, too bright, too stark, light grey, too blue-toned. Then Chen pulled out a dented can labelled Lux Rosa 212, salmon pink. Faulkner opened it. The colour was absurd. Soft, pastel, the colour of baby clothes and spring flowers. Nothing military about it. He looked at the fog, looked at the paint. "Load it up," he said. His crew thought he'd lost his mind. The physics is counterintuitive, brutally so. Human vision evolved to spot threats through pattern recognition. The brain searches for edges, contrast, familiar shapes. A tank-shaped object in tank-coloured camouflage triggers immediate recognition. Tank. Even in fog, even partially obscured, the brain completes the pattern. But show the brain something unexpected, something that violates pattern expectations, and it hesitates, it recategorizes. If the unexpected object is also low contrast in the environment, the brain often simply dismisses it as atmospheric noise. Not threat, not target, not relevant. Pink in grey-white fog has almost no contrast. The wavelength is wrong for shadow, wrong for earth tones, wrong for vegetation. The human brain, scanning for threats, sees pink and thinks dawn light, atmospheric refraction, mist-catching sun. The pattern-matching algorithm categorizes it as environment, not object. It's the opposite of camouflage. It's anti-camouflage. It's so wrong it becomes invisible. Faulkner had seen it work with deer. Now he was betting his crew's lives it would work with tanks. March 22nd, 2200 hours. Faulkner's platoon, 4 Shermans, was positioned in a maintenance area behind the line. He'd requisitioned the pink paint through tactical acquisition, which meant Chen had liberated it without asking permission. Now Faulkner gave the order his crew had been dreading. "We're painting the tank." Sergeant Morrison: "Sir, with respect, that's insane." "Probably. We'll stand out like a..." "Like what, Ray? In fog where you can't see 15 yards, what are we going to stand out against?" "Sir, regulations. Regulations say olive drab because olive drab works in normal visibility. This isn't normal visibility. In this fog, olive drab is a liability. We look exactly like what we are." Private Chen, the loader: "And pink makes us look like what, sir?" "Nothing. That's the point." They painted through the night. Spray cans were impossible to find, so they used brushes, rollers, whatever worked. The paint went on thick, uneven, absurd. By 0400 hours, the Sherman looked like it had wandered out of a child's cartoon. The 76mm gun barrel was pink. The turret was pink. The hull was pink. Even the tracks got spattered. The crew of the Sherman parked next to them. Baker 3, commanded by Lieutenant Frank Harris, watched in stunned silence. Finally Harris called over, "Faulkner, what the hell are you doing?" "Camouflage. That's not camouflage. That's a target. In clear weather, yes. In this fog, it's invisible." "You're out of your mind." "Maybe. But I'm going hunting at dawn." Harris shook his head. Your funeral, Doug. Morrison pulled Faulkner aside. Sir, I need to know you actually believe this works. Because if you're guessing, I'm not guessing. I've tested it. Different context, same principle. Testing deer spotting and testing against Panzers are not the same thing, sir. No. One has lower stakes. Faulkner met his eyes. Ray, I know what I'm asking. You want to transfer to Baker 3? I'll approve it. No questions. Morrison was silent for a long moment. Then, if you're wrong, we die pink. That's embarrassing as hell, sir. If I'm wrong, we die fast. Color won't matter. And if you're right, then we kill every Panzer that comes through that fog. Morrison looked at the paint job, looked at Faulkner. Shit. All right, sir. Let's be invisible flamingos. By 0600 hours, the fog had rolled back in, thicker than the night before. Visibility dropped to 10 yards. The world became grey cotton. Faulkner maneuvered his Sherman forward, finding a position at a crossroads where German armor was likely to pass. Intelligence said Panzer Brigade 106 was moving east, using the fog as cover. They'd come this way. Faulkner positioned his tank in the open, not in cover, not hull down. In the open, broadside to the expected enemy approach. Morrison. Sir, we're completely exposed. That's the point. If this works, we're not exposed. We're invisible. And if it doesn't work, then we're in a pink coffin. Chen, nervous laughter. My mom's going to be so confused at my funeral. How'd he die? In a pink tank, ma'am. Chen, shut up and load AP, Faulkner said, but he was smiling despite himself. They waited. The fog pressed in from all sides. Faulkner had the turret hatch open. He needed to hear, needed to sense. The Sherman's engine was off. Complete silence except for breathing and the distant rumble of artillery to the south. Then, at 06:15 hours, engine sounds, heavy, multiple, the distinctive whine of Maybach engines. Contact, Morrison whispered. Can't see them. Neither can they, Faulkner said. That's what we're counting on. The Panzers were feeling their way through the fog, moving at walking speed. Faulkner could hear commanders shouting to each other, using voice to maintain formation because they couldn't see hand signals. Then the first shape materialized. Panther Ausef. G, 70 yards, then 60, then 50. It passed. The commander looked right at Faulkner's position. His eyes swept across the pink Sherman, and kept moving. Morrison's voice was barely audible. Holy shit, he can't see us. No, Faulkner said, heart pounding. He can see us. His brain just isn't telling him what he's looking at. 7 Panthers passed through the crossroads in column formation, hunting blind. They're searching for American armor, but expecting it to look a certain way. Olive drab shapes with hard edges, defensive positions, hull down emplacements. They're not expecting a pink tank sitting in the open like a lawn ornament. The 7th Panther stops directly in front of Faulkner's position. 42 yards. The commander is out of his cupola, using hand signals to direct the driver. He's looking directly at the Sherman. Faulkner can see his face. Young. Maybe 22. Scared but trying not to show it. Morrison, Faulkner says quietly. You have the shot? Glacis is too angled. Turret ring, yes. Take it. The 76mm M1A2 fires. At 42 yards, there's no missing. The HVAP round, high-velocity armor-piercing, hits the Panther's turret ring, that vulnerable seam where turret meets hull. The penetration is instant. The inside of the Panther becomes a blender of fragmented steel and overpressure. The Panther doesn't explode. It simply stops, smoke pouring from every hatch. The other 6 Panthers react like disturbed hornets, turrets traversing, guns searching. But they can't see the shooter. The fog is too thick. They're hearing the shots echo from every direction at once. Faulkner's already moving. Driver, forward 10 yards. Morrison, target the 2nd Panther. Chen, reload AP. The pink Sherman crawls forward through the fog. The movement should give them away. Engine noise, track clatter. But in the acoustic soup of fog and gunfire, it's just noise. Directionless. The Germans are firing blind now. Main guns cracking out shells that disappear into grey nothing. Target acquired, Morrison says. Lead Panther. Range, Jesus, 20 yards. Fire. Second shot. The lead Panther takes it in the side armor. The Shermans move to a flanking position without the Germans realizing it. This one does explode. Ammunition storage cooking off, the turret lifting slightly before settling back down. The fireball is orange and huge and completely invisible beyond 50 yards. In the fog, it's just a bloom of light, source unknown. Now the Germans are panicking. Radio chatter is frantic. Faulkner's driver, Corporal Mike Reynolds from Nebraska, is navigating by feel and sound, keeping them mobile, making them hunting instead of stationary. They're inside the German formation now, a wolf among sheep. Third target, Morrison says. Panzer A4. 60 yards. He's reversing, trying to back out. Fire at will. The 76-meter cracks again. Hit. The Panzer A4's thin side armor is no match for HVAP. It brews up immediately. Chen is working the loader's position like a machine. Grab shell, ram it home, duck back, grab shell. His hands are burned from hot brass, but he doesn't stop. 4 rounds remaining, sir. Make them count. But here's what Faulkner doesn't know yet. The other 3 Shermans from his platoon, hearing the firing, are advancing through the fog to support. They're still olive drab, still visible as tanks against the environment. A surviving Panther, call sign Tiger 3, though it's actually a Panther, spots Lieutenant Harris's Sherman at 70 yards. The German commander doesn't hesitate. The 75mm K-42 fires. The APC-BC round hits Harris's Sherman center mass. Glacis plate penetrates and kills the driver and bow gunner instantly. Harris bails out with his remaining crew. The Sherman is burning. Faulkner hears the explosion, keys the radio. All easy units, pull back. I repeat, pull back to previous positions. Do not advance into fog. Easy 6, this is Baker 3, we're hit. I know, pull back, let me work. Because the Germans still don't know where Faulkner is. They've killed an olive drab Sherman, confirming their expectations. They're searching for more olive drab shapes. The pink Sherman doesn't register. Morrison. Sir, we've got movement. 2 o'clock. Multiple targets converging on Baker 3's wreck. Range? 50 yards. 3 Panthers. They're trying to secure the kill zone. Perfect. They're focused on the burning Sherman, eyes adapted to the bright flame. Not scanning the fog beyond. Driver, get us behind them. Morrison, prepare for multiple target engagement. The pink Sherman ghosts through the fog. Reynolds is driving on pure instinct, following the sound of German engines, using the burning Sherman's light as a reference point they're steering away from. They end up 70 yards behind the German position. 3 Panthers, stopped, oriented toward the burning Sherman. Their rear armor, 40mm plate, is nothing to the 76mm HVAP. Morrison, left to right. Don't stop shooting until I say. Roger. The 76mm fires. First Panther, rear hit, engine compartment. Fire. Chen reloads. Second shot, 7 seconds later. Second Panther, rear hit, penetration into crew compartment. Dead. Third shot. The third Panther's commander realizes what's happening, tries to reverse, but he's too slow. The round takes him in the engine deck. The Panther dies with its gun still pointing the wrong direction. Cease fire, Faulkner says. His ears are ringing. The turret is full of cordite smoke. Chen, status? 1 round remaining, sir. Driver, reverse us, get some distance. They pull back into the fog. Behind them, 6 German tanks are burning or disabled. The fog is starting to lift. It's 0708 hours now, almost 50 minutes since first contact. Visibility is increasing to 20 yards, 30. The remaining German tanks, Faulkner counts 3 engine sounds, maybe 4, are retreating. Fast. Discipline gone, just getting out. 1 Panther actually throws track in its panic, slews sideways into a ditch. The crew bails and runs on foot. Morrison. Sir, they're running. Let them go. Sir? I said let them go. We're out of ammunition, and they've had enough. The fog is lifting faster now. By 0730, visibility is 60 yards. Faulkner can see the carnage. 7 German tanks destroyed or disabled. 1 American Sherman destroyed, Harris's tank still smoking. And sitting in the middle of it all, absurd and impossible, a pink Sherman. Lieutenant Klaus Dietrich, commander of Panther Tiger III, sits in a captured American jeep at Panzer Brigade 106's command post, 8 miles east of Schwanheim. His hands shake as he tries to light a cigarette. It takes 3 attempts. Oberst Rudolf Mann, commanding officer, reads the after-action report, reads it twice, then looks at Dietrich. "Describe again what you saw." Dietrich's voice is hollow. "We saw nothing, Herr Oberst. That's the problem. We heard shots, saw flashes in the fog. Then Panthers started dying." "You saw no muzzle flashes? No tank positions?" "We saw... there was a shape. Pink. I thought it was dawn light reflecting off mist." Silence. "Pink," Mann says flatly. "Yes, Herr Oberst. Pink like sunrise, like a cloud. I looked directly at it twice, and my brain told me it was atmospheric, not a threat." Mann's operations officer, Hauptmann Werner Steiner, consults a map. 7 tanks lost in 40 minutes. Against what? How many enemy vehicles? "I don't know. I heard 1 gun firing repeatedly, but the acoustics in the fog..." Dietrich trails off. "Herr Oberst, it felt like ghosts, like being hunted by something that shouldn't exist." Another survivor, Feldwebel Hans Gruber, driver from Panther Tiger VI, is brought in. He's borderline incoherent. "It was behind us, then it was beside us, then behind us again. We never saw it, just heard it, felt it, like being in a nightmare where you can't see the monster, but you know it's there." Mann dismisses them, looks at Steiner. "Assessment?" Steiner shakes his head. "I don't understand it. 7 tanks destroyed. They're reporting only 1 American Sherman visible, the one we destroyed. But multiple hits on our vehicles from different angles suggest coordinated attack from at least 3, possibly 4 enemy tanks. Yet survivors report only hearing 1 gun. Could it be a new American tank? Heavy armor? The penetrations are consistent with 76mm, not 90mm, standard Sherman armament. Then how? Steiner has no answer. The report that goes to division is careful, clinical. Enemy armor employed unconventional camouflage techniques in heavy fog conditions, achieving surprise and favorable engagement geometry. Recommend heightened caution in limited visibility operations. Enemy willingness to operate aggressively in 0 visibility conditions was unexpected and effective. What the report doesn't say, we couldn't see them because they were pink and our brains couldn't process it. That sounds insane. That sounds like exhaustion, like fear, like men cracking under pressure. But 3 weeks later, German intelligence receives a photograph from a Wehrmacht soldier who'd been in the area after the fog cleared. The photo shows a Sherman tank, burned out after hitting a mine 2 days after the Schwanheim ambush. The tank is clearly visible in the photo. It's pink. The intelligence officer who catalogues it writes in the margin, "Amerikanische Tarnexperiment," American camouflage experiment. The photo is filed, never investigated further. By April 1945, Germany is collapsing too fast for anyone to care about unusual paint schemes. But among tank crews on the Western Front, a story spreads. The Americans have ghost tanks, pink tanks that appear from nowhere in fog. Some say it's psychological warfare. Others say it's prototype vehicles with special paint that absorbs radar. One story claims the Americans captured a German scientist who developed invisible paint. None of it is true. It's just Faulkner's Sherman and his understanding that the human brain is the most important piece of targeting equipment in warfare. And sometimes the best way to defeat it is to show it something it can't categorize. Faulkner expects the court-martial. He's violated regulations on vehicle markings, engaged in unauthorized tactical modification, and, most damningly, ordered his platoon into action during conditions that explicitly prohibited unsupported armor operations. The after-action report is filed by Captain Bracken, who has to explain why one of his platoons destroyed 7 German tanks with no friendly losses except Harris's Sherman, which was destroyed after Faulkner ordered everyone else to pull back. Bracken stares at Faulkner across a field desk. Your tank is pink. Yes, sir. You painted a US Army tank pink without authorization. Yes, sir. And then you drove it into fog, where you engaged superior numbers of enemy armor at close range. Yes, sir. Bracken is silent. Then, why the fuck did it work? So Faulkner explains. The fog, the contrast, the pattern recognition, the deer in the Adirondacks. The counterintuitive physics of being invisible by being obviously wrong. Bracken listens. Finally, you're telling me you made our tank invisible by painting it the most visible color possible. In that specific context, yes, sir. Jesus Christ, Doug. Bracken rubs his face. Division is going to have my ass for this. Yes, sir. Probably. You know what the regulations say about unauthorized modifications? Yes, sir. Bracken looks at the casualty report. Looks at the kill report. 7 German tanks. 1 American tank lost, and that one wasn't pink. Wasn't using Faulkner's technique. Fuck it, Bracken says finally. I'm recommending you for a Silver Star. Division can decide if they want to court-martial you or pin a medal on you. Division chooses both in a way. Faulkner receives a Bronze Star, 1 step down from silver. A compromise. The citation reads, for innovative tactical employment and exceptional initiative in the face of enemy armor forces. It doesn't mention pink paint, but attached to his commendation is a formal reprimand for unauthorized modification of military equipment and deviation from approved tactical doctrine. The paperwork arrives the same day. Faulkner frames them both. The pink Sherman survives until April 3rd, when it hits a mine near Frankfurt and has to be abandoned. Before they leave it, Chen uses a can of spray paint, olive drab ironically, to write on the turret, Pink Panther Killer 7 confirmed. The photo of that inscription becomes semi-famous. It circulates through Third Army, gets reprinted in Stars and Stripes. Patton allegedly sees it and laughs, then orders it investigated, then laughs again when he reads the report. The technique itself doesn't become doctrine, too context-specific, too weird, too dependent on exact conditions. But it enters the informal knowledge bank of armor officers. The Schwanheim trick. Faulkner's folly. The story gets told and retold, exaggerated, mythologized. By 1950, US Army armor schools include a case study in unconventional camouflage approaches. Faulkner's name appears in the footnotes. The case study's conclusion. Effective camouflage depends not merely on blending with environment, but on understanding enemy perception and expectation. What it doesn't say, sometimes you hide by being so wrong, you become invisible. Douglas Faulkner returns to Portland, Maine in October 1945. He does not return to the museum. Instead, he opens a paint store, Faulkner's Fine Paints, on Congress Street. He runs it for 38 years. He keeps 1 can of Lux Rosa Mopper 212 on a shelf behind the counter. Never sells it. Customers who ask about it get a smile and family heirloom. Sarah, his fiancée who waited through the war, marries him in November 1945. They have 3 children. He never tells them the full story of the pink Sherman, just fragments. Dad did something weird in the war. Painted his tank pink. It worked. They think he's joking. He has nightmares, but they're not about combat. They're about fog. He'll wake gasping, convinced he can't see, that the world has ended at the hood of the car. Sarah learns to turn on all the lights when this happens, to prove the world extends beyond grey cotton. In 1967, a young armor officer, Captain Robert Mitchell, tracks him down while researching unconventional tactics for his master's thesis at the Command and General Staff College. Mitchell brings photographs, after-action reports, German documents. One document in particular, the intelligence photo of the pink Sherman after it hit the mine. Faulkner stares at it for a long time. "Did you keep in touch with your crew?" Mitchell asks. "Morrison became a teacher, Wisconsin. We exchanged Christmas cards. Chen opened a restaurant in San Francisco, Reynolds Farms in Nebraska." Faulkner pauses. Harris, the one we lost. His widow still sends me a card on the anniversary. I don't know what to say to her. You saved his crew. They got out. I painted my tank pink and drove it into fog where doctrine said not to go. Harris followed regulations. His tank looked like a tank. Faulkner's voice is flat. Who made the better call? Mitchell doesn't have an answer for that. Do you think it was luck? Mitchell finally asks. Or skill? Faulkner considers. Both. Neither. I understood how vision works and bet my crew's lives on it. It worked 7 times before it didn't. Harris's crew lived. 7 German crews died. The math on whether that was right is harder than the camouflage. But you'd do it again. In that specific fog, with that specific paint, facing those specific conditions. Faulkner looks at the photograph. Yes, every time. Because the alternative was waiting for clearing while the enemy escaped. Sometimes the rules exist to protect you from thinking, and sometimes thinking is what saves you. He dies in 1989, age 71, of a heart attack. The obituary mentions his service, his Bronze Star, his business. It doesn't mention the pink Sherman. At his funeral, Morrison, now retired, white-haired, tells the story to Faulkner's children. They're hearing it in detail for the first time. When Morrison describes their father explaining the camouflage theory while covered in pink paint at 3 a.m., Faulkner's daughter laughs through tears. That sounds like Dad, she says. Always thought he was the smartest person in the room. He was, Morrison says quietly. That morning in the fog, he absolutely was. After the service, Morrison stands alone at the grave. He's brought something, a small paint can, Lax Rosa and 212, purchased at considerable effort from a specialty supplier in Germany. He sets it on the gravestone and leaves it there. The groundskeeper finds it the next day. Assumes it's debris, throws it away. But Morrison has already taken a photo. He sends it to Chen and Reynolds with a note. The captain would have laughed. Chen calls him that night. They talk for 2 hours, first time they've spoken in a decade. They talk about the fog, about the impossible pink Sherman, about the moment 7 Panthers passed within spitting distance and couldn't see them. You know what I remember most, Chen says. Not the shooting, not the kills, just sitting in that pink turret while a Panther commander looked right at us and his brain told him we weren't real. We shouldn't have been, Morrison replies. By every rule, we should have died that morning. But we didn't. No, we didn't. There's a long silence. Then Chen. You think anyone believes it happened? Really happened the way we remember? Morrison has wondered this himself. The story has been told so many times with so many embellishments that the truth feels like fiction. A pink tank ambushing Panthers in the fog. It sounds like a cartoon, like propaganda, like something someone made up. I've got the after-action report, Morrison says. Original copy. Faulkner gave it to me in '67. The German side matches, 7 tanks lost. Survivors reported atmospheric anomalies and visibility defeating camouflage. It happened. Yeah, Chen says. It did. They don't say what they're both thinking, that it was insane, that it shouldn't have worked, that they were so young and scared and lucky, that Faulkner bet their lives on art theory and somehow won. That Harris's crew survived, but Harris spent the rest of the war with nightmares about being in a burning Sherman while somewhere in the fog an invisible gun kept firing. That 7 German soldiers died that morning, some instantly, some burning, some trapped in disabled tanks, and they died confused, not understanding what was killing them. The moral calculus of that doesn't simplify. It never does. At Fort Benning, in the Armour School's training facility, there's a lecture hall where young officers learn about combined arms tactics. On the wall is a series of historical case studies. One is labelled Schwanheim Engagement, March 1945, Unconventional Camouflage Application. The display includes a photograph, grainy, black and white, showing a Sherman tank. Even in monochrome, you can tell something's wrong with the colour. The caption reads, M4A3E8 Sherman modified with non-standard paint scheme for operation in heavy fog conditions. engagement resulted in 7.1 favorable kill ratio. It doesn't mention that the paint was pink. The photo quality obscures it enough that you'd never guess. It doesn't mention Faulkner sitting at 3 a.m. with paint-covered hands, explaining to a skeptical crew that they were about to become invisible by being absurd. It doesn't mention the Panther commander who looked directly at them and saw nothing because his brain couldn't reconcile pink and threat, and so chose not real. It doesn't mention Morrison's hands shaking as he fired, Chen's burned fingers from hot brass, Reynolds driving blind through fog while enemy tanks passed within arm's reach. It just shows the math. 7-to-1 favorable kill ratio. The rest, the fog, the fear. The impossible gamble that worked is lost to summary. Because you can teach the theory. You can teach color perception and pattern recognition and unconventional thinking. You can teach officers to question assumptions and look for advantages in weird places. But you can't teach someone to paint their tank pink when doctrine says olive drab, when their crew thinks they're insane, when the smart money says they'll die for it. That's not tactics. That's not training. That's something else entirely. Something that lives in the space between calculation and faith, between knowledge and intuition, between this should work and this will get us killed. Faulkner lived in that space for 50 minutes on March 23rd, 1945. And for those 50 minutes, he was invisible. Not because he blended in, because he understood that sometimes the best way to disappear is to be exactly what nobody's looking for. The fog burned off by 0800 hours that morning. The pink Sherman sat in the open, garish and absurd in daylight, surrounded by burning German armor. Faulkner's crew stared at it, at what they'd been sitting in, what they'd survived in. "Sir," Chen had said, voice shaking with exhausted laughter, "we look ridiculous." "Yes," Faulkner agreed, "we do." Morrison, ever practical, "Think they'll let us keep the paint job?" Not a chance. They didn't. By March 25th, the Sherman was repainted olive drab. Standard regulation, standard camouflage. It looked like every other Sherman in the division, but for those 2 days, it was pink, and in the fog, it was a ghost.